We're going to begin our unit on solving expressions and equations by looking at exponents. When we think about exponents, this is something that you have seen before but probably didn't know what it means. It's those little bitty numbers that hover up in the air above another number. And we're going to look at what the origin of that is, what that means, and how you can simplify exponents. First, let's go back to when you were in elementary school and you worked with arrays. When you worked with an array, you would have an equal number of items in columns and rows. So in this case, it's asking us to draw a 5 by 5 array. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects, 5 circles, and I'm going to have 5 rows of those 5 circles. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make them pretty neat, pretty straight, and pretty even. And so this is a 5 by 5 array, and we know that since it's a 5 by 5, there's a total of 25 circles in this array. Now, when we think of this as an exponent, when we have 5 by 5, we can write that in sort of a shorthand way using an exponent of 2. So this would be 5 to the second power. 5 squared is how we would word that. And what that means is we're taking 5 and we're multiplying it by itself 2 times. In this next picture, we have another array. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 items in 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So this would be a 4 by 4 array. So we know that there's a total of 16 circles in this array. And since it's a 4 by 4, this is what we would call 4 squared. The base is the number that is being multiplied by itself. So in this array up above, 4 is our base, and in the other one, 5 is our base. That's the number that we're multiplying it by itself. And we're multiplying it by itself twice. So that's why our exponent is 2. So in 9 squared, 9 would be the base. It's the number that's being multiplied by itself. So this would mean 9 times 9. In 6 to the 4th power, 6 is the base. And this means 6 times 6 times 6 times 6. The exponent determines the number of times the base is multiplied by itself. It tells us how many times we're multiplying that number by itself. So in our example of 3 to the 5th power, 5 is our exponent. And this is just shorthand for writing 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. In 2 to the 7th power, 7 is the exponent. It's just a short way to write 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. It's a much shorter way to write that. Any number that is raised to the 2nd power, so it has an exponent of 2, is said to be squared. So we refer to that as squared. The 3rd power we refer to as cubed. And you worked with this when you worked with area and volume in elementary school. So when you found the area of a rectangle, you would say it was square inches. And when you found the volume of a rectangular prism, you would say that it was cubic inches. You were building up to being able to work with exponents. So now here we have terms. 3 to the 4th power would be considered a term, and we need to decide what the base is and what the exponent is. Well, in this case, the base would be 3. It's the large number that's being multiplied by itself. And our exponent is 4. It's the small number that tells us how many times we're multiplying 3 by itself. What I want you to do here is I want you to go ahead and I want you to pause the video, and I want you to take care of these other 4 terms and decide what is the base and what is the exponent. All right, check your work. Do you have everything correct in the separation of your base and your exponent on each term? All right, let's look at this table. It's actually got 2 parts, so this is kind of the separation between the two. They tell us some of the information and we need to solve for the rest of it. So for example, here we have the base and we have the exponent. Well, in this case, my base is 5, so I'm going to write 5 in the large number, and then my exponent is 3. So my term would be 5 to the third power, or 5 cubed. The base is 5, the exponent is 3. And when we have 19 squared, our base is 19, and our exponent is 2. That's just like what we did up above. When we have a base of 11 and an exponent of 4, the term would be 11 with an exponent of 4. I want you to go ahead and I want you to pause the video, and I want you to complete the other side of this table on your own, and then you're going to check your work. All right, check your work. Did you set this up correctly? If not, fix it so that you have accurate notes, and I want you to think about what went wrong for you. Why is it that you missed that? All right, so now we're going to talk about expanded form. An expanded form is when you show the multiplication of that base. For example, when we have 6 to the third power, we would write it out as 6 times 6 times 6. That's expanded form, where you've written it out that you're multiplying that number by itself 3 times. So then 3 to the 6th power would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, where you write that 3, whoops, sorry, I think I missed one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sure enough, I need one more 3, where you multiply that 3 by itself 6 times. So when we take that and we work out the multiplication, that becomes our standard form. So when we actually do 6 times 6 times 6 and we get our answer, then that would be the standard form, the numbers that we're used to working with by themselves. So if we take 6 times 6 times 6 and we work it out, 6 times 6 is 36. So then I'm going to multiply 36 times 6, and that will give me 216. So 216 is my standard form. Now we're not going to do these problems down here at the bottom. We're not ready for that yet. We're not quite old enough for those yet. We'll be old enough in a few days, but right now we're not ready. We've got a table that gives us some of the information, and our job is to fill in the rest of the information. So for example, let's start with this top example where I have 5 times 5 times 5. Well, this is going to be 5 to the third power because we're taking 5 and we're multiplying it 3 times. So now I need to write it in standard form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply 5 times 5, which is 25, and then 25 times 5 is 125. So my standard form is 125. Well, on this next one, what I need to do is I need to figure out what I can multiply by itself. Maybe I have to multiply it several times, but to give me 36. Well, I know that 6 times 6 is 36, so I'm going to use 6 times 6 here. And then this would be 6 squared, 6 to the second power. We're going to do one more together. We're going to do this 27 together. Now, I know that to get 27, I can multiply 9 times 3. But I need for all of my numbers to be the same. So I can't use 9 and 3. What I'm going to need to do, though, is I know that 3 times 3 is 9. And then if I multiply that by 3, I get 27. So I know that 3 times 3 times 3 would give me 27. Because 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. So then this is 3 to the third power. I want you to pause the video, fill in the rest of this table, and then replay it to check your work. Make sure you pause. All right, check your work. If you missed any of these, fix it, so that way you know that you are going to understand your notes and have good, accurate notes.